Did you know that 70% of businesses fail within the first 5 years? How do you avoid joining this business graveyard? Learn from other business owners who have overcome major challenges and gone on to run thriving businesses on the I Survived Business Podcast. If you're an aspiring or active business owner, tune in now to hear their can't-miss inspiring stories. Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the I Survived Business Podcast. My guest today is Erin Smith, CEO of oceansole, S-O-L-E. Erin has degrees from George Mason University, Georgetown University, University of Pennsylvania, began her career in econometrics, and then worked for various global tech firms such as CGI and BT in London, working in the capital markets. Looks like this project, oceansole, is definitely a right turn, let's say, but very, very interesting company. So welcome, Erin, and I'd love to hear your story about oceansole.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here and tell you and answer any questions you have.
Okay, great. Yeah. Tell me a bit more about your background and how you came to the idea to create oceansole.
Well, I didn't create it. It was to be part of the interesting aspect of your question there was a founder and it was kind of abandoned and kind of unprofitable. We'll talk a little bit about that. But prior to that, yes, I was in, kind of high flying, high tech, Silicon Valley, London, just, kind of went and started taking holiday in Kenya, and I fell in love with it. I worked across the Middle East and Africa region, and, kind of right where I turned 50, I decided it was time to leave corporate America and go on to try to do something different. So I kind of found this project that a friend of mine had that was really struggling. She was a marine biologist. It kind of needed a little bit more of a business acumen and strategic planning and I guess some just discipline to turn it around and make it more from a little happy project, passion project to kind of a sustainable, thriving business that, is giving back to communities and conservation. That's kind of how I got there.
Well, what's the premise of oceansole? What does the company do?
So oceansole is, we're a social enterprise and a nonprofit. We also have a nonprofit arm to our business. We clean beaches. So we clean a bunch of beaches in Kenya and some waterways. We take the flip-flops. We clean all the stuff on the beach because people do ask that. And we have a whole group of ocean mamas that basically do that. And we keep the flip-flops, and the flip-flops are then washed and disinfected, and they turn into art. So basically, we're upcycling, all these flip-flops that we find on our beaches and our waterways throughout Kenya, and they get there for various reasons. But we advocate for conservation and, basically make this art that's like statement pieces so that people can talk about conservation, talk about communities, talk about, kind of the ocean and impact of all the plastic. And that's kind of what we do.
Why flip-flops, and what percentage of the garbage on the beach is composed of flip-flops versus other material?
Well, you find what we find is plastic bottles, toothbrushes, lighters. Flip-flops are a lot. We just happen to be in Kenya is one of the locations, Somalia as well. You'll see this also down in Guatemala and Costa Rica. I mean, it's kind of around the world in these certain pockets where turtles migrate. It's quite interesting when you have these tides in the oceans where kind of your sea life is moving and migrating from one area to another. That's usually what picks up a lot of trash. Well, flip-flops, because of the volume of people that wear them, especially in hot kind of emerging markets where it's one of the few shoes that, people around the poverty level can afford, you just have this sheer volume of them. And so they get caught up in these tides and they end up kind of on the beaches, the same beaches, co-located where turtles need to be hatching. So, as a statistician, I wouldn't say it's a one-to-one correlation, but it's very high correlation. When you see turtle hatching, you'll see predominant group of flip-flops. So probably in certain monsoons, I'd say about 70% of the trash that we see, I would say from a volume perspective, is flip-flops. On non-monsoon, I would say it's probably closer to 30% that is on these beaches that we clean.
So you take all the garbage off the beach, but just salvage the flip-flops, or do you just take the flip-flops off?
No, we take all of them. So what we've done we've trained people, ladies, and in communities up and down kind of the ocean, like I said, and also in the rivers, because we have 5 major rivers in Kenya because, obviously, if trash is coming from villages, it migrates through rivers to the ocean. And we've set up, kind of to say like Avon model or pyramid scheme, where there's like a lady at the top and she organized groups to go out and clean the beaches. So we buy the flip-flops from them, and then they have other buyers of toothbrushes and some of the other plastics. So that's what they kind of make money off of all the trash that they find in the beaches.
What else can be reused or sold to make money?
Let's see. They take plastic bottles. They can be broken down and put into some take, and just a lot of plastic gets reformed there in Kenya. We have some of the major machinery where they can kind of reform them. So they'll basically take, let's just say they take one bag. Out of that bag, probably 60% of it can be purchased by another company like ours or somebody that wants that trash, and then the other 40% then has to be taken to the dump or to a place to be hopefully properly disposed of.
Okay, so these flip-flops, could they be made into anything else, or you're making them into art pieces and that's kind of the end of them?
That's the sad part, because we do get challenged a lot and say, well, you're just kind of more, quote, upcycling than solving the problem. And that is true. We are more, kind of reforming them and giving them kind of a further life. Right now, these cups that we find, because you find them from, just kind of very low quality. These are not things like Havianas and some of the higher brands that, kind of mix in biodegradable rubber. These are that very plastic PVC. So they're very difficult to repurpose and to reuse. Some of them can go back into melted and reformed, and then they're kind of a recycled flip-flop that some of the flip-flop companies use, kind of as a thin layer. So, some of the companies do that, but that machinery is quite expensive, in Kenya, to have a company that would purchase that level of machinery to do that level of commitment of recycling.
Could they be reused as flip-flops? I know you probably only get 54 lefts and 84 rights and all that, maybe different colors, but could they be repurposed and resold?
No, they can't, because we recycle about 1.5 million flip-flops a year. So we, huge volume, and most of them have weathered the storm. They're quite, damaged from salt, or they've been worn, down to red, things like that, because they're not like lost flip-flops like you and I would, maybe leave somewhere at a festival or something like that. These are flip-flops people have worn and thrown away. They just haven't been disposed of properly, either at the villages or, kind of in the small cities or the urban areas, in their home country.
What if you, ground them up into small bits of rubber and then reformulated them into, stuff to be used in the water, let's say like buoys or paddle boards, or I don't know, things like that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So what we do with our waste after we do, we make art, and then obviously we have sections that are left over because, we're carving. Those are shredded, and we give those mattresses to refugees. We put them into, some people have mixed them with concrete, kind of powder, and made 30% like a bit of a flip-flopping concrete brick, or like a kind of block to make some building material. So people are constantly trying to figure out other ways to use the rubber material, that doesn't require a bigger investment like machinery or, incinerator or things like that.
Or the companies that make the flip-flops in the first place, can you get it to where it's good enough material that they could reuse it, or is it too degraded to do that no matter what you do?
Yeah, you can't. Some of them we can, but a lot of it's too degraded, with the salt and stuff. So we can, some of them we do try to give them to another company. They can shred them, and they can kind of put them through this kind of expensive machine and it ends up being black, which is fine, and then they can be reused. It's just like where we are in Kenya. Like if I was doing this in America, obviously the machinery would be easier, the electricity would be cheaper, the business that would, probably invest in some type of sustainable machinery like that. We just don't, really have that kind of commitment or capital, that these businesses want to improve on in Kenya.
Okay. How does this impact the wildlife, by the way? You mentioned turtles hatching, if this is not cleaned up, what happens to the wildlife?
So like the beach, I live on one of these beaches, turtle hatching beaches, and, we get every single day during, certain types of the year, the beach is covered, literally. We'll clean it up one day, and the next day it's, kind of all come in through the tide. So what's happening is the turtles can't make it to their beach, to the beach to lay their eggs. So, that is the big problem, and that's, obviously seasonal. The other problems we have is, people out, the whales, some of the larger mammals, the right whales, we have the huge migratory white whales and humpbacks, and, them through the Seychelles and from India and places like the Indian Ocean has all this. These animals or, these sea life will eat this and mistake the plastic. And, I think people have heard a lot about that as a problem for our ocean life. Insane.
So you guys did the cleanups, and literally the next day, it's like you did nothing?
Yeah, and a lot of these beaches during certain times of season. So during our monsoon season, particularly, every day it has to be cleaned up, because it just comes in again, and it comes in with wood. It's not just like we've all seen these horrific pictures around the world of these rivers of plastic. It's not like that. It's more like, as the high tides come, over the night, especially full moons, then we get, you'll see loads of plastic bottles, flip-flops, and other things that have just been, kind of traveling the seas.
So what do you make these flip-flops into? What kind of, and where do they go? Is it functional art, or is it just to look at, or where do they go?
Well, so what we do is we obviously, because we're from Kenya, we have a huge savannah line. We do huge giraffes, all this kind of like lions, giraffes, warthogs, things to represent Kenya. We do lots of marine life. And in these, when I say this, we do everything from kind of a quick, maybe 3-inch, level of a sculpture all the way to life size. I've done an 18-foot giraffe. We've done a car. We've done 2 cars. We've done a Honda. We're in the process of doing a Porsche right now. We've done bottle openers. We've done wall art. We've done tons of just, people come up with ideas, whether they're corporations that want to kind of like stand out in their lobby and have a art or something that they want to make a statement for. We've done that. We've done dogs. People have sent us pictures of dogs. We've done flip-flop dogs for them. Pretty much anyone that's just kind of likes the colors. We're very colorful. If you look on our website, you'll see, they have a kind of a color pattern because those are all the colors of the flip-flops. And we're standard down there. There's vibrant pinks and blues and red, yellows. And so we mix all that together. And, so they're quite a statement piece for people that aesthetically, like that look.
So are there enough buyers of this material where you don't have to stockpile it?
We have, mostly, like I said, our target is $1.5 million. And to be honest, that's probably, we're almost equal dollar to dollar for every, kind of flip-flop that we recycle is usually, almost correlated with our. So there are times when we have flip-flop shortages, and we say they're not really shortages. It's just, there's probably other people in Kenya that have collected them. We haven't bought them yet. But in general, it's a pretty steady supply. What we need, I'd say once a year, we have some challenges around supply. The only raw materials we have are that and then polyurethane, which is the kind of inside of a refrigerator or a container, kind of a container, shipping container for food. We use that stuff as well for some of the bigger scopes.
So now that you've been doing this for a while, what other ideas have come to you? Like, where is it going, this project?
Well, it's a very interesting question because, I've talked to, we basically are like the Girl Scouts, I'm kind of selling cookies to do good. We don't really take donations. I mean, we'll take individual, some people like supposed to be clean up, but we don't live on grants. We're not a, kind of that nonprofit business nonprofit. And so, there's 2 directions for us. One is, this is a solution. We create about 150 jobs annually, plus not including, I should say, our ecos, where you guy that delivers the meat to us, or, the vegetable provider, or, all these, kind of, all the economic impact that we have on a broader scale. And we would like to go to another country. I've been to Haiti, Guatemala, I've been to Honduras, I've been in the Caribbean, I've been to India, Australia. There's parts of this world that have this problem, and they have people that know how to carve, and they need, kind of low income or high impact communities that need jobs. And so it'd be really interesting to kind of take this, like, I'm kind of old school techie, select all copy and take it to another company and, kind of go and do that impact. So that's one area of growth that we've looked at where it's kind of more on the impact side. We have talked to your earlier questions and inquisitiveness around the flip-flop of coming up with, an oceansole type flip-flop that, is either 100% recycled or using biodegradable rubber. There's all these new mediums to do it that now can do it and think about a way to kind of go to market with something that low impact on the environment for that type of shoe.
Well, what kind of environment would the recycled flip-flop material work best in? It seems like actually a water environment. I just, what came to mind is I wonder if there was a fisherman or multiple fishermen that could use products made from this that would float and maybe have a line that drops in the water, and they could, fish for certain things. You wouldn't want to make pollution from what you make, but I just wonder if it could be used in that way.
Yeah, I mean, we've made some, fishermen like these birdies. I don't know if you're a deep sea fisherman, like these things that hang off these long lines, that kind of tease in the water. We've made those for a lot of fishermen instead of plastic. We do constantly look for opportunities instead of something being, cheap and, kind of massively manufactured and, fashion, if you will, and try to replace that. It's just, The challenges to kind of the genesis of your podcast, the challenges, when we're on the hustle kind of daily, just kind of trying to, make sure we meet our commitments to our, employees and to our community around hot meals and, fair wages. Sometimes to be able to stop and think of these things strategically without the capital or without the time, as you know, it's
well, tell me some of the challenges that you face, because I want to focus on those. Because I've been interested in the story. Yeah. I haven't asked you about that, but tell me some of the difficult things that you face.
I would say, you're dealing with handmade artisan products, right? So it's kind of everything. Every one of our artists were previous wood carvers. So they themselves would cut down trees and, take that wood and make curios that you've seen probably, in Kenya and other places around the world, that solid. So, I think we've made a huge impact in taking them away from cutting these trees down to doing this work. When you're dealing with 150 artists that are kind of, getting paid fair wages and getting, supplements to their income and hot meals, you still have the challenges of, kind of their lifestyle that are coming up that, need to be dealt with, and helping them, as a part of our network. That's one. Cash flow, we are not in a necessity. My previous life, it was always value selling. How do you take the software, the solution, kind of go to the market? Hard to convince somebody you even tell us a ball for $1,500, unless they're really passionate about the product. So, and we don't have a lot of we have repeat customers at the high end, meaning people that, businesses that support us yearly buy corporate gifts, or they buy their VIP gifts. Yes, we get that. But in general, we're not a product that the old 80%, rule where 20% are making 80%. We're pretty much always having to look for new people to hear our story, new buyers, so our acquisition costs run high. The other thing is, our market, we make everything in Kenya, but like the biggest market, obviously, is the United States. Well, kind of being a small company is, having to set up a fulfillment, having to hire, quote, Americans here to do marketing, with the cost basis, is the strain on, the overall business. So those are some of the challenges that we've had for sure in terms of growing.
How do you make money though? I mean, how do you fund the operation? Who donates, or is it more revenue from sales of art that funds you?
It's all revenue from sales, about all of it. I mean, people, if they donate, people give us $200 to do. It's all revenue. So basically, the profits are, reinvested in the company, obviously to grow, because that grows more jobs and more consumption. We give nearly 20% back into the community. I have an employee welfare program where money is almost like a 401k. They can borrow from that. They can distribute from that, put money into that. And then we put another 20% back into conservation, whether it's turtle hatching or these supported right whale research.
Well, tell me again about some of the real significant challenges. Was it getting off the ground? Was that really tough? Like what things did you face that you had to innovate to overcome?
Well, I think what happened for me, my real challenge is when I took this over, and it was, just a flail, kind of had been abandoned by the founder. And, but what she did, which was, I think, the biggest mistake, was looked at this as a very sustainable kind of high plush toy business, and not taking the level of handmade, artisans into account. And she took a shareholder, and they were 50-50. She took a lot of capital, about $500,000 capital. And it just wasn't spent for growth. It was spent in operational efficiencies, as of, not considering you're a handmade product. How much operational efficiency are you going to be? You don't need machinery and stuff. So, by the time I kind of showed up and started consulting with them before I bought it, there was huge debt. There was huge promises that had been made to the people, to the market, that weren't being kept. So, to me, it was like kind of taking my history of, business process and, kind of business consulting and layering that onto this, making this digital enterprise actually operate, to some level of efficient, kind of with some true transparency and kind of growing.
So what things were necessary for you to turn it around? Like when you first took it over, was the current clientele like, hey, what's going on? Why has everything changed so dramatically? Like what was it like when you first, again, took it over, and the challenges of it?
Yeah, the challenge, it was just all wholesale. They were really high relying on wholesale. So like selling to zoos and aquariums, which are still our client base, but they thought the market would be like wholesale and distribution. inflation. Well, there's just not enough margin in these products to do that. So where the margin was, what I did was the first thing I did was we went upstream. We kind of started making really big pieces. We made that Honda car. That was $42,000. I mean, I've made art $60,000. We've made big pieces. We kind of just said, okay, we're going into the art world and the statement pieces, installation. And that helped with kind of a balancing of the profit, the kind of in de-risking kind of the profit from, kind of like a wholesale market. The other challenge we have is there's people that want to buy us a big department store like Kohl's or like a big, Disney, but they have so many rigid, back office procurement processes. We can't adhere to that. We need money up front to help make the art. So a lot of times we can't play in that space because, of our own cash flow. Not prices, but, kind of managing our cash flow. I can't afford to make 50,000 products and not get paid for 2 years, kind of thing that a lot of companies can do when they're in that space.
I see what you mean. One thing came to mind. Could you make furniture?
Well, it's so funny you say that because I just got off the phone today. There's this gorgeous designer. He's from Africa, and he's going to go to Milan, and we're going to collaborate on a furniture piece. We're kind of making some furniture just to see how that works. And so we're going to give our first shot at it. We have made poofs. I don't know if you know what you mean, like a footstool and stuff like that. And they're hugely popular because, they obviously they can be with the weather. They can be in the sun. They can get wet, and it's kind of fun. So we have done some things, but not on scale with a designer that can proportionately, with some of that, you need that engineering acumen in terms of dimensions and, weight and things like that. And so this will be our first time.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I could see company could requisition a whole bunch of office furniture, and you guys could make that, out of the flip flops and stuff. That'd be really cool. Well, for hospitals or for playrooms or a lot of things, I guess.
Yeah, because right now, hospitals do buy are big buyers of some of our art, obviously for children distraction. You know what I mean? It's everybody kind of, when they get creative, we can collaborate with them. We've made a shoe with Chloe, which is a very famous French designer, and we made the sole for them, and then they made this beautiful shoe. Kind of retailed for about $700. None of us could afford it, but it was gorgeous, and that was a really fun project.
Yeah, no, it's really excellent. You said that sometimes there's not a shortage, but there's not enough flip flops for you. Why do you think that happens? Where does that come from?
Two things that happen. Well, funny because there's a good question I asked about 6 years ago, and I started correlating it. One of it is during the monsoon time, right after the rains, right? That's when obviously we're not getting as much movement of trash around. So during the dry season, and then the second thing is it's about the time of crops. Most of our employees, they have their own farms, they have, to provide for their family. And so they all own acreage and they're very small subsistence farmers. And so we'll find a lot of times when it's that farming season, that's when a lot of our flip-flop collectors and our whole kind of supply chain, which is kind of informal but formal, is kind of at the farm and not really going out and getting our supplies, funny enough.
Oh, how many beaches do you pull from? How many locations?
Well, we pull 13 right now, 13, I'd say. And so when I say that's 13, probably 5 miles for each of those locations. And then we would do the riverways, kind of the rivers that flow through the different counties. So those we're probably in about 16 locations. I mean, there's massive more. The challenge kind of with expansion like that or trying to reach out to Lake Victoria, which is probably about 300 miles from Nairobi, is transportation costs. We've got to fund getting kind of all of those flip-flops down to Nairobi, and that can be quite expensive. So we try to, get them where, there's the transportation cost of moving, the trash, if you will, isn't so high. It doesn't kind of eat up all our cash.
What would happen if someone just donated 10 million flip-flops to you? Would that be a good thing or a terrible thing?
It's funny. There's a company called Four Oceans. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're always calling me and saying, take your flip-flops. So the issue is, one, Kenya, would they import them from outside? Kenya values them. And so there'd be a huge import tax on them. That's one, which, is crazy because, obviously with some of the changes globally around, where the trash went, things like that, a lot of countries are kind of walking down on taking other people's trash, and they would be considered that. So that would be one. We would love it. If it actually worked out or somehow, that would work out. But, that is the biggest problem. Is actually Kenya probably wouldn't let it be imported, sadly.
Have you tried to get the government of Kenya to, have you considered donating to the government or, the government buying one of the pieces to publicly show their support for the nation's waterways? oceans?
Yeah, they have. I mean, KW, we have two groups, UNEP, which is the UN's environmental program there. It's headquartered in Nairobi. We have every climate change, every like king and queen of England were just there. And, we always are part of, I would say, any type of anything that's environment. They will have pieces there. They have some of our art there. We have the Kenya Wildlife Service that gets involved. So we partner with them a lot. I mean, Kenya is in a hyperinflation mode right now, like trying to, figure their way out of that. So they're interested in riverways and waterways, but, I think there's a couple other issues in front of them. We do have huge support, I would say, not so much from our president. I mean, yeah, he is, and he definitely knows of us and things like that. But, in terms of these communities or the Ministry of, Interior and Tourism, we're quite kind of up there in that space. We don't ourselves take on a lot of what I would call lobbying. You know what I mean? It's like, I think there's other groups that are probably better for us. Again, going back to our advocates for it. And so it's like, if it's in your, in your face, you kind of understand what we represent.
Are there any groups or people that are against what you do for some reason?
It's funny, sometimes our video, we've had two viral videos. One was on Business Insider that lots of people have seen. It's a great 6-minute, and I highly recommend going to YouTube on our channel or theirs and looking at it, kind of tells, in a nutshell, in 6-minute story. And we've also had one called The Flip Flop Artist that was about 2017, I think 187 million. That's what drove us to go online. And we do get people that will say, see the guys, doing sanding, because obviously to finish the art, they need to sand it, working with rudimentary knives, so you do get people that, kind of have judgment against how things are done or, kind of concerned about health and safety. But in the main, I would say we do not have, people resisting it. We just get we call them, keyboard warriors that, which you've probably encountered some, is that have statements of those. And it's fair enough, I think, yes. I will tell you a funny story, because we were just looking into the new platform X, obviously previous Twitter and the others, this whole revenue sharing program. And, we do draw a lot of attention with some of our content. And so it's like, when are we going to monetize? I'm like, I followed some guy and he was saying, you trolls, I hate you, but I'm driving a Ford F-450 that cost me about $200,000 because of you trolls. So keep it up. Because they're engaging, you know what I mean? Because of the engagement up so high. So I was like, God, the world's changed a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. You can recycle the troll. You can upcycle the trolls, actually. That's what you're doing.
We can all get on them and push them in one direction. But I think there's some people that's just what they do, or they even get paid. I think there's even people that get paid to trolls nowadays. There's in this new economy, this whole, you kind of wonder where all the money comes from, and then you start to really see, there's a lot of people online kind of opinions.
Okay. Well, very good, Erin. Again, what's possibly furniture like we discussed? Any other projects that are significant? Where will this be in the next few years?
Well, I think we're, ideally what I would love is somebody to come along and buy us like a Havaianas and become their CSR, kind of mission, and go around and, kind of set up more of these workshops, and, somebody that has the capital to kind of invest in, kind of taking these flip-flops, instead of making it art and making these big machineries, and seeing if we can do something that's more, kind of functional or wearable or something like that. That would be ideal. I think our next stuff is around lifestyle brand, in terms of really looking at the oceansole, flip-flops, what can we do there? And, I think this furniture kind of collaboration would be quite interesting, because that could really be a fun, kind of channel and market for us.
Yeah, very cool. Well, very good, Erin. What's the best place for people to find out more about oceansole? Where should they go?
Oh, well, thank you. I would love for you all to visit oceansole, SOLE.com. Also, .org is where all our nonprofit activities are. But, between the two of them, they all point to each other these days. So, and then the videos we have on YouTube, just any of those channels. And you'll see tons of pictures, loads of media attention that we get, some great content, and, and probably see some fun some products you like.
Okay, very good. Well, Erin, it's been good to talk to you. It's a very unique product and business that you're running there. So thank you for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate it.
Now that you've heard from active business owners who have overcome serious challenges, consider implementing what you find useful to help your business not only survive, but thrive. Visit isurvivedbusinesspodcast.com.